So, J. Miles Dale, you are one of the producers of The Shape of Water, nominated for 13 Academy Awards, including Best Picture of the Year. Take us back to the beginning. How did the journey of bringing this movie to the screen start?
Well, it really started with Guillermo as a 6-year-old boy sitting in front of the television at his home in Guadalajara, watching a rerun of The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and him hoping that the creature and Julie Adams, the girl in the movie, together. He was obviously heartbroken when that didn't happen, because it stuck with him for about 40 years until he was able to and right the cinematic wrong by writing this movie. So, he was always interested of ourselves and as a reflection of outsiders, and he was looking for a way in, which he finally found. He was Daniel Kraus, his partner on Troll Hunters, who gave him the last little part of the idea to tweak it and have it, instead of it being a scientist, or Guillermo had a theory about going on how the girl, she thinks more of the monster than her two co-scientists who are jerks who want to kill it. So he finally cracked it, idea of it being the cleaners and coming in through the back door, and came to me a couple of years before we started shooting, and we got to work.
What were some of was it difficult getting the money together to make this movie? I mean, was it a hard sell for studios?
Well, with Guillermo, I feel like it was probably less of a hard sell. With anybody else, they'd probably look at you like you were crazy when you pitched a story about a mute cleaning lady falling in love with a fish. But with Guillermo, you can see it. He works in allegory and metaphor, and he tends to live in that world. And when he pitched it to Fox Searchlight, which he actually did at his Bleak House, his muse of props, they were very taken and they were interested right away. So shockingly, it was not as hard as it would seem at first blush. It was hard to make the movie. We were resource challenged, and Guillermo is very ambitious in terms of scope, especially on such a personal project that he saw so clearly. But Searchlight, who have been incredibly supportive, they bought it right off the top.
Well, one of the things that surprised me was when I found out that you guys had made this movie for less than $20 million. And I mean, considering all of the period costumes and sets, not to mention this fish man, I have to wonder, how were you able to do that? I mean, what were some of the practical ways you were able to work within that budget limitation?
Well, we are going to be paying off our student loans for a long time, so I should say that. Look, it was a combination of things. Guillermo likes to say that budget is a state of mind, and to an extent that's true. And if you know what you're working with, you can tailor it. You make you prioritize and you get smart. Again, on a labor of love, it's a little easier to do that. But we did a few things. You may know this or you may not, but we were doing a show called The Strain, a TV series, and I said to Guillermo, if we do it in between seasons of the show, we can use the stages. It's the same studio. FX that made The Strain is owned by Fox, as is Searchlight. So we talked to everybody, and they agreed with that. So we have the TV show sets and some of the people and everything. So we just got smart all the way around. And some people work for less, and I feel like people really understood that this was Guillermo putting his heart on his sleeve, and there was a high degree of commitment to the project. So all our suppliers around town, whether it be lighting or camera, or our visual effects people who had also been working on the TV show, they wanted to be a part of it. So we dug in hard, and we did what we had to do.
Given the period setting, and I mean that includes things like cars and wardrobe and set dressing and things like that, can you talk about the ways in which, as a producer, you help facilitate bringing those elements together so that you can be historically accurate and also serve the vision of the filmmaker?
Sure. Well, one thing to know, it's different sometimes when you're working with a firm and they may not have the kind of experience that they need, but you still try and support the vision, and and do course corrections. With Guillermo, I mean, he's so clear on everything, and there's really nothing that's arbitrary anywhere in the movie. So really, it becomes appetite control and execution. So for all of us, and from me to the production cinematography designer, the color palette is very specific. There's not one color on a wall or of a shirt or anything else that's then. So in that way, it makes it easy because he can articulate it, and you can follow the blueprint. And also, believes that that's one thing: cinematography, production design, costumes, everything that goes into the making of the film. So, we had a group together before, and that shorthand was very helpful. So, for me, it was just making sure we stayed sharp, and that if anyone, along the way got off track, and you're doing small course corrections. But as I said, Guillermo, he articulates these things so clearly that all you have to do is really kind of follow his instruction, and when it comes down to it, prioritize, and good things should happen.
Adding into that, the creature, you've got extensive makeup and also special effects. Can you talk about some of the ways in which you work around that or work with that?
Sure. Well, Guillermo we all knew that with this kind of a movie where you have a man as your leading man in a love story, that the creature had to be absolutely perfect. So before the movie was even pitched, he had been working for a year or two with a couple of sculptors, Dave Meng and Dave Grosso, to come up with the basic shape. We knew that it was going to be Doug Jones playing the amphibian man. He had been in 6 of Guillermo's movies and our TV show, had played a total of, 10 or 12 characters. So we knew we were building it for Doug. So that was good. And then, so you start to work on it. You work on the physique, and you work on the face, and you work on the lips, and you start to work on, look like. So that was a big part of it, because we knew the fate of the movie literally kind of hung in the balance of being believable as, a romantic lead and as a god. So, and Guillermo does that. He was a sculptor, and he knows that in a big part of it. And then when we pulled, Legacy and Shane Mahan into it, and then Mike Hill collection. If you've seen the big Frankenstein head and the Mary Shelley Frankenstein and the Lovecraft thing, he's done a number of those things. So, Guillermo has a of people that he's worked with over the past several years, and when it was time for each of them to come in, he knew who. So that was a long period of sculpting and execution, and trying various. Knew that, so it had to be resistant to water. Certain kind of silicones break down. We knew that the paint scheme had to be, naturalistic, but beautiful. And then we had to think about lighting it. So as Guillermo says, there's 3 things you do. You sit, and only then are you really done. So that process was always kind of in his mind, and that's why I feel like it was necessary to get ahead of it by a couple of years, so that we weren't rushing that at the end with so much riding on that.
Working with Del Toro, I mean, you mentioned the strain, so you have a long collaboration with him. What is that collaboration like? I mean, what does he do that sets him apart from other filmmakers?
I think, he's incredible. He's also, he welcomes you in. He's funny, and he's not standoffish. He makes you feel comfortable. For everybody all down the line. I mean, he knew the name of all of the animators who worked in visual effects, and that's really meaningful as a sculptor and a painter and an artist. So, at heart, he is a film nerd like that. He's seen every movie ever, and he has that film language. He can go on and on and on. When he was 23, he wrote a book about Hitchcock, and he could talk for 6 hours Hitchcock film, even the ones you and I haven't heard of. So he knows the film language incredibly well, but also he's able to fairy tale. And, for example, our movie is set in 1962, but it's really about what's happening today. So you would have been a little more difficult to pull off. But if you do it, as a period piece, it works as a fairy tale, and it works as allegory and metaphor levels. He's really in a league of his own as someone who can work in that kind of a structure, narratively make something, work like a fairy tale. So it's really a special skill, and, it's kind of a privilege to be a part of that.
So this film, 13 Oscar nominations. You're one of only, I think, 10 movies to ever get that tally. You've got wins at the Producers Guild Awards and the Critics' Choice Awards. Del Toro's also won the Golden Globe for directing. What does that kind of recognition for this movie mean for you and for everyone involved in it?
Well, of course, we're very happy that people are seeing it, liking it. It's resonating with people. You don't really know what this movie is going in. I don't think that anybody can really know from the trailer, what it's going to be and how it's going to affect them in terms of what it says about, outsiders and people finding their voices and their power, especially, this year. There's been a lot of that out there in the discourse. So I think first and foremost, it's wonderful for us, and I'm especially proud of Guillermo, who, you take a chance, as he likes to say, if you are ironic or sarcastic or any of those things, you can look really clever, but if you're earnest, you can look kind of sappy and kind of have to get it right tonally. And he wasn't scared to just put his heart out there. And I think, we're mostly gratified. I'm certainly personally most gratified for him that, he could make that kind of an expression and that it would resonate with audiences like that. Certainly, for all the people, who we work with, we've been working with them for a long time, that kind of recognition is gratifying as well, because, they just did their work. And of course, you can't really plan for this. Nominations will come and awards will come, but everything kind of has to fall right for this to happen in terms of, and the movie turning out, the way you thought it would. Guillermo could see it very clearly in his head, but, as it all came together, as we actors, and you start to think, oh my God, that's a really special cast, 1 through 6. And then, here comes, as we got some brilliant stuff, and The Cut, and Alexander Desplat, and now here's Renee Fleming to sing our song, and things just started to happen where you feel a beautiful energy around the movie. And then the first night we showed it to people was in Venice on Labor Day weekend, and they turned and Guillermo and the actors and all of us, and it was a 10-minute standing ovation, and it was just an incredible feeling. There was so much emotion in the room, and you're thinking, I guess we did okay with this. So I feel like the recognition is good, not just because of awards, really that people understand the movie and it affects them in the way that it was meant to, as an expression of Guillermo's heart, and that's incredibly gratifying, whatever may come, awards wise.
Well, it's a really special movie. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations.
Thanks, Zach.
Have a good one.